Why generalist designers are eating specialist lunch in 2025.
If you really want to go down the specialist route, some of the best opportunities probably lie outside the normal tech environment.
If I was this shape, what do I do, dude? Why generalist designers are eating specialist lunch in 2025. Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah, absolutely. We've started to see this when the big wave of layoffs happened like 2 years ago. But we've seen that because the specialists were some of the people that were like kind of let go on scale first. Like a lot of researchers lost their jobs, a lot of UX writers and content designers lost their jobs. And a lot of them have either gone, to more generalist profiles in the meantime or are still looking for jobs. Or some of them obviously found work again because it's slowly recovering as well. And also these specialists are still like, it's not like there's no market for them. But if you're trying to like go in and like trying to position yourself in the best way possible right now, generalists absolutely the thing to go. One thing I like to add there though is that generalist does not mean that you do everything but nothing really well. Like in my opinion, not necessarily what that means. Because if we remember this kind of model of the T-shaped designer, right? Like this is something that was thrown a lot a couple of years ago. I think we're not looking for the T-shaped designer now. We are usually looking for the V-shaped designer now. So basically you cover both ends, like from end to end basically, but you're like going deep on certain topics with one being super deep, like kind of being your specialty or something. But you still can do everything. You will do everything across the board, but you will be able to go deep in certain directions and actually have like some kind of like specialty and like heavy profile. That can be visual skills, like for example, could be prototyping. So if you consider yourself a specialist right now, you could transform towards this type of designer. Obviously, you have to want that. Like, I don't feel too forced there. If it's really what you're passionate about, there might just be a way. But I would say that they're eating the lunch for sure. Like most job posts out there ask for end to end. They do ask for specific specialties in that V shape, and it's definitely what's happening. Yeah.
With generalists and specialists, are all types of companies hiring more towards the generalist side you've seen? Is there a difference between startup and more agency? What's your sense on the ground there?
I think it's quite across the board, which is, I think, a rare occasion, really, because I think especially corporate and startup used to be quite different. But so in startups, you would have found the generalist a couple of years ago already, right? Like usually you don't have any kind of budget there to hire a specialist, not even a researcher or something very often. You would have to do it yourself or all of it. That hasn't changed too much. What maybe has changed there is the focus on visual skills has grown a little bit, but the overall picture of who you're hiring there hasn't changed too much. In corporate, though, it has changed massively because we used to have these really big teams. And I would even say that in some environments, they were bloated. And we actually have proof for that with like people in engineering and design that used to be at like Meta, for example, saying that they were on teams where they had nothing to do because there was just no work for them actually. And everything was so slow just because for the lack of work. And what happened with all the layoffs is these teams they went from really thick to super thin now. That means that everyone that is remaining on those teams has to do a lot more and has to do things that they used to have specialists for they might not have now, or they have to kind of share with like two other teams. So they only can do so much. And so the generalist profile definitely has seen an increase in like demand in these environments as well. Absolutely. In terms of agencies, I would say that they also probably favored generalists always. And I would also say that agencies in general haven't seen the same effect that the startups and corporate environments saw in terms of the layoffs. Like agencies have been somewhat stable in that, not super stable, but like a bit more than the other two types. I think if you really want to go down the specialist route, some of the best opportunities probably lie outside the normal tech environment. That could be government. If you're in the US, UK, or maybe Netherlands, or in the Nordic countries, these governments all have, I'd say, pretty decent design organizations. The UK probably the best one, and they are still very much hiring specialists, and they really embrace specialists, I would say. Another thing could be like non-profits, but it's very limited what you can do there. But if that's really your thing, if you double down, if you get extremely good at what you do there at your specialty, I guess it's in for you.
I mean, that's really interesting where now, because of all the tools at our disposal and all the information widely available, it's probably easier now to become a generalist if you're a specialist than ever before. Do you think it's the same way around, where if you're a specialist, it's almost easier to go into a generalist role as well? Does it work both ways, or?
I do think so, yeah, because if you remember the V shape that I showed, if you are down here with your, like with the tip of the V basically, currently you're just like your line, right? You do this one thing, you do it really well. Now what you have to do is like you have to build up and like basically open up a little bit. And I think that is easier than building specialty because that is what really takes time. Like if you already doubled down on something before, that is what really took you the time to like get good at it, because this is not happening in like a couple of days, weeks, or even months. Usually this usually happens over years, right? And you already did that. So now what you have to do is you have to kind of fill those gaps, and you might want to go deeper on some of the stuff in that V shape. It's not straight. There's still some other stuff you have to kind of fill up on. But if you do this, I think on a self-learning path, you can definitely do that, especially if you already have industry experience. I think that's something that you can definitely do. The question is, do you want it? A lot of people in this market naturally feel forced to do things they don't actually want to do, which is sad thing, and it's something that I don't like to see or hear, but it's a reality. And so we kind of like think about, do you want to do this? But yes, I do think that, for example, a researcher could very well transition to a more generalist UX role pretty easily if they really want that.
For me, if I was this shape, like a broken cone, what do I do, dude? Because I feel like that has been my shape. First, it was a flat line, and then I just kind of went, but maybe not deep on certain levels. What do I do with myself?
So to be fair, connect the two outer lines, do this, because you actually have a V shape. The only thing that you might be lacking is the really good depth on one of those things, like to basically reach a deeper point with your V. Everything else, like these other lines, are like kind of points that the sides of the V touches. And that's fine. That's actually great because it diversifies your profile, I think. But basically, if you have this shape, pick one of these things on the line that you already have lines for and double down on that. Exactly. Like what's at the end? Is it prototyping or something, you know? Kind of double down on the last line there, for example. Make that go deeper, and then you just connect it and it all falls into place, in my opinion. Again, there are maybe some skills that are more worth doubling down on than others right now. But this is also something that I think is very much subject to like trends in the industry that might just change this year, might just change next year. So don't overthink it too much. If you already have like a lot of potential in one area, no matter what it is on that line, I feel like you should not just opt for something else because that's the current industry trend probably. This is just going to cost you more time, and it's also has a risk of failing. Just double down on what you already do quite well, I'd say.
Yeah, because I feel like early career folks, they feel like they have these disconnected lines that don't necessarily map to one another, right? And you're saying, no, figure out how they can then converge on one point, and then your longest line that goes downwards, reinvest in that and actually say, okay, no, this is the core skill. Then now how do I find different avenues to connect that and like converge it in the middle?
Exactly, yeah. And I mean, there are sometimes skills that like have greater synergy with other things you might already have some expertise in, you know. If you, for example, prototype really well, just doubling down also on like, you know, general visual skills could be something that will enhance your prototyping game as well. So it's like try to like make sense of what you can do and what you cannot do so well. And then at the same time, it might also be worth, if you already feel like your lines are pretty like solid, you can also take a look at adding another line. If there's something, you do it, but you do it on a super basic level, like deepening there could also be worth. But that is only if you feel like you've got that one specialty or at a level that's like really good and like well perceived by other designers or people around you, then you could do that as well. But in general, try to like go deep on something.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so let's pivot here to what we call the...
Want to listen to the full conversation? Click the video on screen now. Subscribe to the channel if you want to join us live. Oh, wait. Okay, fine, you don't have to join us for the live stream, but if you like stuff like this, then click that subscribe button. I'll see you on the inside. Bye!